to another edition of the MSDW podcast. I'm your host, Jason Gumpert, editor at MSDynamicsWorld.com, and joining me this week is Bob McAdam. Bob's a program manager for GPUG, and he is a veteran of the GP space. He has also been a GP user. I think he still is a GP user, and he has worked in the Microsoft channel. Bob's also one of the hosts of the Enterprise Software podcast, which looks at Dynamics ERP space as well as other solution ecosystems. GPUG just wrapped what is one of their busiest weeks of the year with GPUG Summit 2016, which ran last week in Tampa, Florida. We'll be talking about the event, the GP roadmap, and the next year in GPUG events. So let's begin. Hey, Bob, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me today, Jason. I really appreciate the time.
So Bob McAdam, you are the program director at GPUG. You've just come off of the whole GPUG Summit week and all the activities around that. Are you recovering at this point from the festivities?
Yes, I am, slowly but surely. Last week in Tampa for the 10th anniversary GPUG Summit extravaganza, which I was calling it, was really superb. It was a fun week. It was a very full week, a lot going on, and the general buzz and most of the surveys that I've read already, because I've got a little bit of downtime this week to kind of digest all that we went through here in Tampa, have all been positive. I'm really very upbeat. I know immediately following an event like this, you're supposed to be tired, and I am tired. I told people go home exhausted, and I'm exhausted, but still flying high from all the good stuff that went off last week with GPUG Summit. It really was a superb week, and I do believe that everyone attended would agree with that.
And yeah, it really is a full week for those who want to be involved and stay involved in a summit event. Just to sort of step through the full week at a high level, it starts off at the very beginning of the week, right, with training, and then moved, this particular event started with training, right, and then moved into the Tuesday, the Dynamics 365 launch,
right,
then into sort of the true conference itself over the rest of the week, and a few other things sort of interspersed in there, right? Am I missing anything?
No. You're exactly right. We started our academies, both GPUG as well as the others, Sunday. Microsoft wanted to roll out Dynamics 365 on Tuesday afternoon, and in the past, Monday and Tuesday have been our academy days, but we started off on Sunday instead to accommodate them, and yours truly is a GPUG Academy instructor, and I had a class on Sunday afternoon, and then I did 2 more on Monday. So the beginning part of my week was pretty busy. And then once Monday was done, it was time to do some rehearsing for general sessions, of which GPUG has 3, and of course attend the Dynamics 365 rollout on Tuesday afternoon at Amalie Arena, where the Tampa Bay Lightning play. I have to say that, I've been involved with Dynamic Communities both as a partner advocate and an employee for 10 years, and to see us need a hockey rink to hold an audience and to have a stage inside such a grand building to kick off one of our events was really just overwhelming, but really cool. Pardon the pun, it is a hockey rink, but really cool to do it in there and kick it all off in a building like that. Just superb. I was really pleased about that.
Yeah, it's definitely a step up in scale from your typical conference ballroom. I was thinking the same thing, and I didn't actually realize it at the moment, but I put it together a couple days later. But the ice was actually right underneath us, I think.
Yes.
Because the Lightning kicked off their season, on Thursday?
It was Thursday evening, that's right, with a win over Detroit, by the way.
Yep, yeah, it was, and I was actually at the game. I was way up in the nosebleeds.
Yeah, nice.
So I went back and I was like, oh, the ice, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I guess we were right over that during the kickoff.
I said once they tear all that stuff out, we were supposed to be out of there by midnight Wednesday evening, and the audio video guys, our sister company, had it all torn down by dinner time, and I'm sure the players for both teams were anxious to get out there and wondering when all this Microsoft stuff was going to be over with.
Right. Yeah. I think they had a little work to do on that ice. It was, I don't know how many times they played on it so far. The guys were skidding all over the place. Mm-hmm. Florida, keeping a rink in Florida going in Tampa must not be a small task.
It's challenging, but certainly it was chilly in there for sure.
So I thought we could maybe talk by sort of stepping through the week. You touched on the work you did in the Academy, 3 courses. I mean, that's a lot of coursework to pull off, but I know you've done that quite a few times at this point. But I wanted to really maybe start with what the larger group saw and work our way through the week a little bit to get your impression. So almost everybody, I think, must have been a good chunk of the total attendee group was at that Tuesday afternoon Dynamics 365 launch. And, I don't know. I'm interested to hear what you've heard about that. I thought it was interesting because I cover not only GP with our site, but obviously all the other Dynamics products and 365 coming out. Obviously, that's interesting to me. But, you're as the program director for GPUG, you're talking to the GP audience on a really regular basis. Did you come away with any impressions of how they took that first day and Microsoft's efforts on Tuesday?
Generally speaking, I would say that GPUG Summit 2016 attendees were impressed with what they saw from Microsoft. This is a new product rollout. This is a new strategy for them. But I think Microsoft did a good job of communicating this and not making it really confusing for attendees. So that was one of the things that we were a little bit concerned about is the average Dynamics GP end user who's maybe working in payroll or financials or inventory, what have you, are they going to immediately presume that something like Dynamics 365 is on their radar for the near future as opposed to just seeing a new product rollout? And it's fair to say that the ones that were there that I spoke with did not see it as, something they upgrade to right away, but rather a new offering, and that starting on Wednesday morning when we kicked off GPUG Summit with the general session, that the conference would go forward as it has 9 times previously. So that was good to hear. I personally thought the show was good. I thought maybe they had a few too many demos. It seemed to go on, 2.5 hours for a show like that. A rollout is kind of lengthy. But Scott Guthrie did a good job, and Ray Wong also was an excellent speaker. And I also thought it was good that Andy Hafer, our CEO, kicked off the program Tuesday afternoon by getting all the UG chairmen up on the stage and talking about the user groups, and also putting his touch on it with Portico Chorus, who just did an excellent job. I can't say enough about them right there. So overall, pretty good rollout. Nice to see Microsoft choosing our event to kick off this new product. Convergence is no more, so they came to talk with us. But Wednesday morning was all Dynamics GP and the other Dynamics applications, as it should be. And as gatekeeper for GPUG, I wanted Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to be exactly the way the previous 9 summits had gone, and that is all GP all the time.
Mm-hmm. And I think that GP users make that pretty clear that's what they come to that event for. Even partners, GP partners often say something similar when they go to a GPUG event or an event for GP. They want GP content.
Yeah, I mean, I reviewed some of the initial surveys that have come in myself, and one of the items that came up a few times was Thursday at GPUG Summit. Not to get too far ahead, but we did have lunch on Thursday followed by expo only time, so no sessions, and then the Dynamics Idol contest immediately following that. And some people felt like there was too much downtime because they're so hungry to attend sessions at GPUG Summit. They want as many CPE hours and as many pieces of content that they can get their hands on in 3 days. They want to immerse themselves, and it's clear from the surveys that content is king, and that's the number one reason why they attend GPUG Summit.
I wanted to just maybe go back to one more point I took from the Dynamics 365 launch. I wanted to see what you thought of it. Clearly it wasn't, and I agree with you basically that I think between planning it with sort of beginning and ending with Andy on stage and both to sort of put everything in the context of what the user groups were doing. I agree with you. The presentation on some of the giving that the organization's doing was really great to see, especially when this many people representing so many different businesses go to one city and it's able to shine a spotlight. That yeah, I agree. I mean, I love to see that. But not only sort of obviously making it clear that this was an event that was focused on those users, but at the end, getting Scott Guthrie to come back out on stage after the cameras were off and take, I guess, the top, I don't know, it wasn't actually that many questions. Now that I think back on it, it was probably 5 or 7 questions that were sort of voted on, I think, and just have him sit there and try to answer those as best he could in front of everybody. I thought that was actually pretty useful. Did you think that helped?
Yeah, I did. I mean, certainly Scott Guthrie is pretty high up the food chain at Microsoft, and they're asking to be a part of our event on the front end, and they did their thing, and they gave their show, but he's not really required to sit down with Andy afterwards. That was an Andy Hafer idea to have a Q&A with the audience, and he went for it. He never pushed back on it. I thought Microsoft went out of their way to be cooperative and to work with us, knowing that this was our event, and I really appreciated all elements of that, really, to have Scott up there with Andy talking and taking some questions from folks in the audience.
I mean, even if you're a GP user or a GP professional who really doesn't have any plans to do anything with 365, it had to have been worthwhile to sit through sort of the full-scale Microsoft presentation on it, just to know what's there, know where Microsoft is, frankly, going to be investing a lot of its R&D and a lot of its marketing efforts in the next year, so that you're not confused by it, if nothing else.
Oh yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, this is their strategy, and they're going forward with it. And Microsoft's got a lot of resources and effort behind this, and will continue to have those pieces in place. Dynamic Communities is getting ready to roll out 2 new user groups for Dynamics 365, one for the Enterprise Edition, one for the Business Edition. So we're rolling along with the strategy as well. But at the same time, we haven't forgotten about our roots with the original Dynamics product line, and we're going to continue to plow forward with those. But it is an interesting strategy, and I'm fascinated to see it all play out in the near future and see how Microsoft moves it along, in that space, because they've had tremendous success with Office 365, and companies like QuickBooks are doing extremely well with cloud accounting. So they certainly know where they want to go with this, I think, and it'll be interesting to watch it all play out.
I absolutely agree. Okay, so yeah, we've kind of talked about the 365 stuff, and it was really Wednesday of the event when the real GPUG Summit got underway. Talk to me a little bit about, because I did miss the general session for GPUG. Talk to me a little bit about how the event really kicked off, what the Microsoft GP team's message to the summit attendees was.
Okay. So GPUG Summit kicked off Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock at Amalie Arena. GPUG Summit 2016, for the first time ever since Dynamic Communities began running all the summits the same week, which goes all the way back to 2008, had the highest attendance of all 4 user groups. So that was really exciting for me personally, because each year the AXUG Summit wins the attendance battle, and this year they didn't. So that was exciting. Aaron Back, who is the advisory board chairman for GPUG, and I jumped into tuxedos Wednesday morning to celebrate the 10th anniversary extravaganza properly, and I kicked off GPUG Summit at the arena at 8 o'clock, and I had about 3-4 minutes on stage where I got to just kind of get everybody going. It's Wednesday morning rather. They've already had a busy couple days, most likely. They're just arriving in Tampa. So I went out there to try and get things rolling and get them excited about the upcoming week, because it is 3 full days, and I'm excited about the boatload of content and the endless opportunities to network that are in front of everyone. So after that got going, Aaron came out, introduced himself. We talked about the State of the Union as far as GPUG is concerned, and we did a little walk back during the general session where I pulled some old photos of myself and Andy and Mike Smith, our original advisory board chairman, and said, look, these pictures are 10 years old, and all of us are a little bit younger and a little bit thinner and have fewer gray hairs, but the mission of GPUG as an organization is no different today, even though it's much larger than it was in those early days when we were just getting this train out of the station. We talked about the week ahead and thanked our sponsors, and then Microsoft came on board with Errol Shanefish and Jen Rands and Jody Christensen and spent roughly 1 hour talking about Dynamics GP 2016, Dynamics GP 2016 R2, which debuts around December 1st, and what the roadmap looks like going forward. At the Dynamics GP partner-only event Reimagine, which was in September, Errol talked about how Dynamics GP development goes forward, and we are expecting a new release of Dynamics GP probably in early Q4 of 2017, and the cadence will be slowed down to 1 time per year, because twice a year, quite honestly, is quite a bit to get your arms around.
Yeah, I think that's been too fast for almost everybody. It seems like
Yep.
that's been coming. I think they've been edging toward that decision for a little while.
Yeah, and if you go back, I don't know, let's say 15 years when it was version 5 and version 5.5 and version 6, I mean, it was coming out pretty fast then, 6, 7, 7, 5. They were cranking out code quickly then too, and then they slowed down and were releasing once every 2 to 2.5 years with roughly 130 pieces of functionality in each release. But then they sped up again, and each rollout had roughly 40 pieces of new functionality, and they delivered the HTML5 web client in full recently, but I think people will like the fact that the cadence is slowing down, but that development for Dynamics GP is going forward, and that we can expect to see a new release next year and then into 2019 and etc. So they did spend a lot of time. I mean, let's face it, Errol and Jen and Jody, all fabulous resources from Fabulous Fargo, could have stuck some Dynamics 365 stuff in there, but I asked them not to, and they stayed on course. They did all Dynamics GP. Even at one point, they were showing off some Power BI data that we gave them around GPUG chapters as far as locations, number of members, industry, things of that nature. So they just did a grand job as usual, and I think most people left the GPUG Summit opening session Wednesday morning feeling really good about the show, really good about the application, and we're more than ready to dive into a full 3 days of content.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, if there was any of the four, I guess core, I know there's more of them now, but if there were, of the four core UGs that sort of have been part of Summit, I think it was GPUG whose users sort of just needed that baseline. Because I know from, like, I was at Reimagine too, and partners needed that baseline of here's what's coming up, here's what our commitments are, here's what our plans are. Let's get that out of the way so we can talk about product, and we can talk about, the things that you care about in your day to day, or maybe even your quarter to quarter planning. So 2016, it's funny you mentioned 2016 and 2016 R2. I guess from what I've been hearing a little bit is that, a lot of companies, especially a lot of customers, are only now kind of considering going to 2016, the original 2016 that came out,
May 1st.
Yeah, in the spring. Is that fair to say now that R2 is on its way, now people are more seriously looking at 2016?
Yes, I would say a majority of the end users there were on GP 2013 R2 or 2015, because they're coming out every 6 months and they haven't had an opportunity to really assess what's in them. So a lot of people are looking at Dynamics GP 2016 really for the first time because they didn't make GPUG Amplify in May, or they're just busy and they're trying to determine when's the best time for our company to pull the trigger on an upgrade.
Okay, so people sort of got the high level roadmap. They got a look at some of the related Microsoft technology that's going to be important to think about going forward. Power BI. I assume there was probably a little bit of Office 365 stuff sprinkled into that general session as well from the Microsoft side.
Yes, there was.
And and that was my other thought for stepping back to Tuesday again, seeing the 365 launch was, if nothing else, picking up on what some of those top non-Dynamics investments are that Microsoft's real keen on. I mean, I think most of those are going to be relevant to a GP audience too, even if they're not used integrated exactly the same way.
Right.
Things like, well, I guess Power BI is a good example, but Office integration or applications for machine learning or other things like that could be tied in.
Yeah.
Down the line.
We certainly spend a lot of time on different modules and integrations and things like that, but you're right, there are a lot of other tools around Dynamics GP that end users can leverage in their business, and Microsoft spends a lot of time working with that and showing that stuff off, and it's good stuff. People embrace it and are curious to learn more. The Power BI stuff in particular, really getting a lot of attention. Power BI first integrated with Dynamics GP 2016, so I mean, if you're on that version, it's right on your homepage as soon as you log in, so...
Yeah, I mean, between the Power BI integration with the embedded Power BI and the new OData web services, I think that's really a whole new set of options for companies that they didn't have before.
Exactly right.
Plus the workflow, from what I know, workflow updates would, to me anyway, as I'm, as a non-GP user who sort of follows the space a little bit, that again seems to be one of those capabilities that really sort of is going to open up the product a little more than, as opposed to, obviously there's feature enhancements and new point features introduced too, but those are the kind of things that make me think, companies can find better ways to sort of build out what they're doing in GP.
Oh yeah, no question. They've added a lot of new things a couple years back, and each new release that comes out, they tweak it and make it a little bit better. You mentioned workflow. There's document attach. There's Smart List Designer. So they are improving several aspects of the code as each release comes out. Over time, it's really become quite noticeable how effective these new pieces are.
So they took the roadmap out as far as about 2019 in terms of how far they're looking for GP next.
They took the roadmap to like 2019, 2020, but they did have the name GP 2018 in the queue for release in 2017. So for the first time, we actually have a name and not just a dot on the roadmap. We have a name for next year's release. And I don't know about you, but that makes me feel a lot better about the development going forward. I need a name and I need a date, and then I can concentrate on that. So when it gets here, which should be right around Summit 2017 in Nashville, they can show it off if it's ready, or even show it off if it's beta and just about ready.
Yeah, the naming is a funny thing now because if it's going to be the year, I mean, it's not like it's important because by giving it a name, it sort of acknowledges its existence or its pending existence. Yep. But the name itself is no surprise anymore. It's like, well, gosh, I wonder what the next one will be named.
Yeah, it all depends.
But no, I take your point.
It all depends on which side of the July or June 30th fence it falls on.
Yeah. Well, it looks like second half of the year is going to be the way forward.
Yeah. Which is good timing for GPUG Summit, quite honestly.
Oh yeah, no question. And it sort of they get it out there. I'm going to guess most people in a late fall, early or late end of the year release aren't going to touch it till after the new year.
Yeah,
I would guess. Is that typical GP?
Yeah, and I think that's good timing. They can roll it out there, and most companies are preparing for year end or preparing for audit or budget or what have you, or the holidays are in there too, and perhaps not too many companies are contemplating doing an upgrade in the short term around that time. So it gives some of the other folks who would just try it out in a test environment to see how it cooks.
Yeah. All right. So, I poked my head in on a couple of the other sessions from GPUG Summit while I was in Tampa. It was a couple of them were totally packed rooms. I think there was a Power BI walkthrough with Microsoft that I couldn't get into because it was like it was about to become a fire hazard. There were so many people in the room. It was a huge crowd for some sort of Power BI walkthrough, I believe. And then there was the Excel shootout that I also tried to get into and failed. It was Belinda Allen and Mark Polino.
Mark won, by the way.
That one, I believe.
Yep.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yes, he did.
He's got 2-1 Belinda, I think.
I think you're right.
If I remember correctly. But that was a really popular one. But I don't know, any other user feedback? You said you've been looking through surveys already. More GP content, like more CPE hours.
Yeah. People are hungry for content. Yes, some of the rooms were quite full. As the event gets bigger, we're trying to go out further in the future and find cities and spaces more than a year in advance. So we knew coming into this one it was going to be a little tight, and the biggest rooms that I had for sessions held 180 people. So for the Excel shootout or the SQL Server shootout or anything that Amber Bell did, quite honestly, the room was full and people were sitting on the floor or standing against the wall and packed in like sardines. But honestly, most people cited that as a concern, but I didn't really hear many complaints about it. I think if the content is good, I think people are willing for an hour to be packed into a room and absorb as much as they can. So I think it's fair to say we've outgrown Tampa, and that's fine. Certainly when we picked Tampa a couple of years ago, we didn't realize that convergence would no longer be on the calendar, or that Microsoft would roll out a SaaSified ERP on the front end before we got started. So all those things come into play.
Yep.
But Nashville will be at the Gaylord Opryland next year. There's room for everybody to stay, so you don't have to be in a hotel that requires a bus. And there's enough room for sessions. It's a big, big place, and we should be a bit more comfortable. But again, I don't think too many people complain because the content and the quality of the speakers and the passion of the speakers. Belinda and Mark and Amber and Steve Endow, our SQL Server shootout champion, and scores of other people who would, rather eat glass than miss GPUG Summit because they love it so much and they want to present and they want to be there. It's incredible. So the enthusiasm and buzz each and every day, despite the fact that it was a wee bit crowded in just about every room, was never tampered down at all. Everybody was like, hey, as long as I can get into Amber's session, as long as I can get in to see Mark and Belinda fight it out with Microsoft Excel, I'm good. Let's go and let's get as many sessions in under our belt as possible.
Yeah, and it's got to be be a challenge sizing places. Obviously, you do it way out ahead. You don't want to have way oversized, and also you obviously don't want to be too undersized. I've always enjoyed. I guess I've only been there for a couple events now, but I've enjoyed going to Tampa for conferences.
Yes.
I like the city. Obviously, the weather's real nice. It's a great setting there. So kind of sad that you can't have it there anymore. But it certainly makes sense. Moving to a larger space and more accommodations.
Certainly, when we consider Florida again, Orlando will get consideration. It's got a gigantic convention center and zillions of hotels, so I really feel like that'll fit us nicely. That place is well thought out. The Tampa Convention Center probably could have been bigger. They probably could have put some more hotels there when they first built it years ago.
More restaurants.
Yeah, more restaurants. But it is a nice setting, and even though the hurricane skirted the east coast of Florida a few days before we actually kicked off, the weather could not have been nicer. Most of the humidity was gone. And the sun was out every single day. And I really feel like the people that came to Summit 2016 got the very best foot forward from the Tampa Bay area for sure.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I had a good time there. It's I've been going to the Tampa area for years, but I always do enjoy going there. It's a nice part of the state.
Yeah, it really is. It's right in the middle there, so it doesn't get too humid compared to say South Florida or Naples,
right.
But it doesn't get real chilly, if you want to call it that, like parts of northern Florida get in the wintertime. So
yeah, I just can't refer to any parts of Florida as real chilly. I just can't do that. Sorry.
If you've been down here as long as me and your blood thins like it has, yeah.
I know. I do. I recognize that when it does get cooler, it is a little awkward for people in Florida. The houses are not built with good insulation. There's not a ton of heating, so it gets down into the 40s, and it's actually pretty cold. In wherever you go.
You're right.
So I try to take that into account, but I still don't have all that much regard for your chilliness. Well, so a lot of good sessions, a lot of CPE credits. People want even more. What else would you maybe highlight if we're just sort of looking back at the event? I know there's certifications going on. There's a whole lot of vendor parties and events going on at the same time. Anything else that was memorable?
Well, certainly Dynamics Pro, which is a not-for-profit entity that is certifying folks in Dynamics GP and Dynamics NAV since Microsoft punted on that a couple of years ago.
Yep.
We gave exams for Dynamics GP as well as Dynamics NAV right there on site, so that's important. And people who want more information can visit dynamicspro.org. As far as the evenings go, a lot of parties, a lot of vendor get-togethers. I referred to them on stage as advanced networking opportunities, and there were a lot of them. People need to come to GPUG Summit and get full on content, learn as much as they can, but in the evenings, it's a good time to network. Have dinner with your partner, have dinner with your chapter, or a peer of yours maybe in the same position or the same industry. And a lot of these companies, a lot of these ISVs and partners, now that this event has gotten so large, are spending good time and good money on really excellent parties in the evening. So the get-togethers are numerous. It's not just like there's one night and maybe you're idle the next. There's all kinds of things to pick from ISVs across all the Dynamics product line. So, yours truly as an ambassador of GPUG tried to visit as many of these advanced networking opportunities as I could, and was really grateful to see my reseller throw a great party and another reseller throw a superb party and a couple of ISVs that had nice parties, and they had lots of people there who were all just networking and enjoying themselves. And let's face it, people spend 47, 48 weeks a year in the office, in the trenches, doing the same work. They're constantly working on their company's business and their task list, etc. But GPUG Summit gives them a week out of the ordinary to kind of recharge their batteries, learn something new, meet some new people, perhaps provide a solution for someone that's having problems in an area you've already solved, or finding out a solution from someone who's already wrangled in that area. So I really feel like a week away in a place like Tampa, away from the norm, and gives you an opportunity to refresh those batteries and have a good time and come back to work, albeit exhausted, refreshed and ready to apply all the new things that you've learned and leverage the new network connections you've made while in Tampa. So it's really a win-win all the way around. You just have to focus on the event. Don't focus on, here's an email or here's somebody at the office calling me. Stay focused on where you're at, and then next week you can play catch up and communicate the good time and the things that you learned at GPUG Summit.
Well, congratulations on being the largest of the events at the summit group of events
Thank
this
you.
year. That's a pretty cool achievement, and thanks for telling us about it and catching up on it. Now that we're doing the podcast, it's a great chance for me to catch up on things, because I mean the summit event is great, and a little like Convergence used to be. I mean, there's so much going on. I had a second writer there, but even still, I mean, with the 4 events, it's a real challenge to kind of capture it all, and maybe we have to bring even more people to help capture it all in the future or something. I don't know, but yeah, it's as usual an important event for the Dynamics community, and fun too.
Yeah, it's got to be fun. It's got to be good learning. It's got to be full. And it's nice to hear you say you need more folks there, because we frequently hear, oh, there was too much content. I couldn't get to everything that I wanted. And that's when we say, look, perhaps you bring a colleague, perhaps 2 next time, and divide and conquer. Maybe you're a GP and a CRM end user, and you need to learn about both and get smarter on both. So bring a couple of colleagues. Don't travel solo, and divide and conquer as best you can. Because yes, we did do 150 educational sessions each and roughly 30 partner solution showcases each. So GPUG Summit by itself had 175, 180 sessions. CRMUG was the same way, ditto for the other 2. So there's a lot going on. A lot of content at the same time is rolling, and that's right, you can't be in more than one place at one time, and a full day of sessions is a lot to absorb as it is. So the more the merrier.
All right, so yeah, takeaways, I guess. Dynamics GP moves forward. The roadmap got a refresh. GPUG Summit itself, I guess, record attendance, right? And
record attendance.
And next year in Nashville.
Yes, next year in Nashville. Actually, on Friday, we released the 2017 calendar for GPUG, which will include a second iteration of GPUG Amplify. It will be out west like it was last year. This time, however, it's going to be in the latter half of March. So same place, just a couple of months earlier. GP partners will meet in Fargo again, this time in the first half of August for Reimagine 2017. A lot of people said Reimagine and Summit were too close together, and some of those ISVs had to go to directions in between, so they're like, give us a little bit more runway, so we listened and moved it up. And then, of course, the 11th annual extravaganza for GPUG Summit, Nashville, Tennessee, the same week as it was this year at the Opryland Hotel, so everyone can fit under the same roof, no buses, a little bit of walking because it's a big building, but we are expecting a tremendous crowd and just as much momentum, if not more so, than we've had in the past. So looking forward to it already, needless to say.
All right, well, Bob McAdam, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been fun.
Jason, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I very much appreciate it.
My thanks to Bob McAdam for joining us this week, and this has been the MSDW podcast. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to be on the podcast, maybe you are an ISV with a product release, a consultant with a case study, or a partner with Unique Slant on the Microsoft channel, drop us a line. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at MSDynamicsWorld.com. You can reach me at jgumpert@MSDynamicsWorld.com. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World signing off.